tonight on the Cover One Buffalo podcast, we are joined by Joe Goodberry to break down Bills Bengals. But first, Handsome Jack.
Broadcasting live to Bills Mafia worldwide with Greg Tompsett and Aaron Quinn.
Welcome to the NFL. Doesn't matter what's happened before today. Today's a brand new day. It's a brand new season.
Your number one podcast for objective Buffalo Bills coverage. No matter where you are, we got you covered.
Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo podcast. You are joining your host, Greg Tompsett, along with my partner in crime, Aaron Quinn. Aaron,
yo,
how we doing?
Cold. Super cold in Western New York right now, but that means it's Christmas season. So I'm miserable that the weather's cold, but I'm happy that it has turned from Halloween into Christmas season here, and I'm rocking it as hard as I can. How about you, my man? You guys got some actual legit snow.
Yeah. I definitely needed the mini bye. I needed a little break. It was fun to just watch other teams play football for a minute. And we had a really fun Halloween last night, and it got kind of chilly towards the end when we came inside. But like we were outside in sweatshirts, like we weren't even wearing jackets. And then I saw overnight, like, oh wow, it might even snow. So I was expecting to wake up and see like the frost on the rooftops.
That's what we had this morning, a little frosted tips.
It was like you couldn't see any grass. You could not see any grass. We were covered in snow. Yeah. I was not prepared for that. That was different.
You don't find it as like romantic and nice as I do either.
No, I did not.
You don't love that
neither
stuff.
did my dog.
Yeah.
But how about from a football standpoint? I liked having the mini bye. I liked having it. We'll talk about some of the moves in free agent signings as well as the trade deadline once we finish our game preview here. But I will say it wasn't quite as fun coming off the mini bye, but now directly into one of the tougher matchups of the entire season.
Yeah, no, I was just saying here offline that not excited to talk about this game. That wasn't excited to cover this game. And I think it made the mini bye go by faster for me, especially also with the trade deadline looming into the mini bye. It just made it go quick. But I will say here, I hope that fans took the opportunity to really watch some of these other games, because the problems that we all are constant about and complaining about, clock management, decision-making, punting, whatever it is, shotgun in the red zone. Like I saw all of it on full display throughout the NFL this week. And so our problems aren't unique to the Buffalo Bills, even though it feels that way at times. It was a good opportunity to see that the NFL is full of those kinds of problems for all these teams. And the parity in this league right now is probably at an all-time high, more than I can remember in my adult life. We're seeing just crazy outcomes of games that you're just not expecting. And teams really, that whole idea that, well, if team A beats team B and team B was really good, that means they should beat X. Like that logic just doesn't apply to the NFL right now.
This past week, we finally completed, it usually takes about this long, the circle of parity, where now the Carolina Panthers were the final team to win, and it goes along the line to be like, well, the Panthers beat the Texans, and the Texans beat the Jaguars, and the Jaguars beat the Bills, and the Bills beat the Dolphins, and like it goes all the way around. And all 32 teams, you can undo the A. If A is greater than B is greater than C. You can undo that immediately and show that it's not that simple. Everybody messes up. Hell, 3 weeks ago, the San Francisco 49ers were the sure thing, like lock for the Super Bowl, that they're just going to be unbeatable, and they've now lost 3 straight games. It's just way too early to make those kind of
and speaking of the game that they just lost, I had to just watch that back here this week. Crazy. The Cincinnati Bengals looking like, here's the thing that is also frustrating about the mini bye is 3 weeks ago, I felt a lot more confident about playing the Bengals. Right. And then you see them like
healthy calf will change that.
Yeah. And he's starting to get healthy, getting a bye week, getting some rest on their end, coming out looking pretty fantastic. So that was probably the most painful part of the mini bye, is watching the team you're about to play look as sharp as they have all year is probably the hardest part about that.
And Speaking of which, without further ado, our man Joe Goodberry, you guys have seen him here before, host and creator of Bengals on the Brain. You see him all over Twitter at Joe Goodberry. Search for Bengals on the Brain on YouTube. Joe, how we doing?
Doing great, man. I liked you guys starting off with the cold and the Halloween because, man, I did not respect the cold last night, and I think I got a little bit of something going on now.
I saw you and your brother Glenn pulling your shirts out, seeing the Bills on the Brain. I'm repping the Bills on the Brain here,
Very nice.
and the Bengals on the Brain shirts under your Ghostbusters costumes. And my first thought was, I was out with like hot tea in a winter coat, following my kids around. I was like, these two dudes are crazy. They are got to be freezing out there. So yeah, I'm not surprised that you got sick from that.
Yeah, well, I did have a thermal on, then the t-shirt, and then the whole white suit, and then carrying the backpack, the Proton pack. It was I built up a little sweat there.
Oh, okay.
There you go. So let's talk a little bit. I think it's easy. Every fan base is very insulated. They become their own echo chamber. They become the only team dealing with injuries. They become the only team dealing with adversity. They're the only team not meeting expectations. Help Bills fans. I don't know that any team has gone through as much of a roller coaster of preseason expectations, coming off back-to-back AFC Championship games and the Super Bowl themselves, to a bit of a rough start, which is not foreign to Bengals fans. There's been some rough starts over the last couple of years here, to now I got to be feeling as good as they have in a while. Talk through a little bit about how that path has gone.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, I live in Western New York. I'm watching you guys. I follow all you guys. I listen to WGR. Like that. So I hear these things in the conversations and the Dorsey, and they're not doing this and this, and whatever it may be. It is very similar to all of the things I hear from Bengals fans on Twitter and on my show, and when I'm talking to them. It's just this position they didn't fill in free agency. They should have drafted this guy. The offense isn't explosive enough. They're not running the ball enough. They got to get under center. They got to bring the tempo up, yada, 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 all these things, right? And some of them are true, and some of them do get corrected along the way. The Bengals are a very similar situation where expectations are high. If we're not winning the Super Bowl between these two teams, we're going to have a good time, but, man, there's going to be some sour taste in your mouth at the end of the year, no matter how it ends, right? Unless you're hosting that Lombardi Trophy. Having said that, we expected Joe Burrow to be healthy for the first time all off season, and then to have a full training camp and maybe get some preseason snaps, start off hot, and they've never been able to do that. And Burrow's always been either injured or it was the COVID year. So we get 4 days in the camp and he tears his calf muscle. And it's like, oh my, here we go again, right? Now we're going to have to go through this, going to have to figure this out. And like the big complaints from my end and from other fans were, you knew this injury was there. You had 5 weeks to get ready for the season. Why wasn't there a more robust ground game? Why wasn't there more to protect him? Instead, they basically wheeled out the same offense as last year, except your quarterback can't move at all. And not
the park and bark. Like just sit him in the shotgun and that's
just sit him there and chuck it after 2.25 seconds. Do not hold it for anything and don't try to make anything happen. And it's like, yeah, it took 3 weeks to figure out this can't work. This cannot function. Maybe it could have if everyone else was playing at a high level, but that's the variance of football, right? The defense was having its ups and downs. They've lost players. The O-line was having their ups and downs with new players. T. Higgins wasn't the same guy for whatever was going on. Maybe he's worried about the contract, whatever was happening. And so it didn't work. And they started off 4. And then the last 3 weeks now they've won. Burrow looks like he's getting healthier and healthier until last week. If you guys watched that game, it was on local here in Western New York. The Bengals and 49ers, the Bengals completely looked like what we expected them to look like on their best days. And looked great on offense, defense, dismantled a top 5 team easily in the 49ers. And now everyone's like, yeah, we're on the right track. Let's go. But part of the story is Bengals have been incredibly inconsistent this year. And we have to see if they can match that 2 weeks in a row now.
Well, and I want to get into that sort of a general outlook because I do think it's easy to see an injury to Joe Burrow and understand that that's going to impact the way that he plays, right? I think he's more mobile than people give him credit for. Mm-hmm. He's not in the same way we see Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson, but even dating back to LSU, like his ability to run and get going out of the pocket and even just being slippery, right? Like we know that offensive line for years has not done a great job protecting him, but he's really good at sneaking out of sacks, sneaking out of those situations, really on display in that 49ers game. They had him dead to rights a number of times in that game, and he just sneakily gets out of it, slippery, makes a throw. So we know that calf was going to be an issue, right? But the way they were playing, there had to be other issues at play too that were somewhat concerning to you. It wasn't just a Joe Burrow injury that was leading to the what you guys were seeing for results. What were some of the biggest issues outside of his injury that you've seen them correct here going forward?
Yeah, so because of the injury, they thought the best idea would be to run out of shotgun every single play. And they had a couple of kneel downs where it skews the stats. They ended up being 99% of shotgun up until this past week. And that's largely because they are a very wide zone team when they do go under center. So they didn't want Burrow coming out of under center and really stretching that and trying to get that handoff to the outside. I get it. But because of it, the ground game really was pared down to just inside zone and duos and, really hoping you can just get Mixon shot out of a cannon for 6 yards and be happy with that. You're really not getting the explosives out of shotgun running. And what it does is defense really don't care. If you're not getting more than 10, 15 yards, they don't give a shit. You can sit there and take your 6 yards all day long, right? So they were struggling with that, with getting the ground game going, making it worthwhile even going with. So you end up throwing, I think, 2 of these games that he was hobbled in, he had 50 attempts or at least 50 dropbacks. And it's like, you're asking this guy for a lot right here. T. Higgins was double clutching balls. Looked like he and Burrow were on different pages on a few plays. Tyler Boyd, we're starting to wonder, is he losing a step? He's only 28 years old, but at the same time, he was never a high pedigree kind of guy, real fast, athletic guy. He's like, he's not getting open at the same rate he was, averaging like 6 yards per catch now. It's not great. That's not what you want to see out of it. They didn't address tight end really at all. They took a low chance roll of the dice with Irv Smith on a 1 year, $1.2 million deal. He has been Irv Smith. He's been who he's always been. I don't know why the expectations were higher than that.
I do love Irv Smith, though. I'm just waiting for him to figure it out at some point. It doesn't seem
only
yet.
really, really dumb people drafted him in fantasy thinking that this would be really good. Idiots did that.
Yeah. So we get 2 back-to-back historic tight end classes, and they don't touch either one of them. And it's like, can we, more weapons for Burrow? You always need more weapons, right? Even
I do like Sample too. I like your tight ends. They're just
he's good at what he does. You would like
good
one other guy there that could actually do. I mean, you guys go up and get Dalton Kincaid, and it's like, the Bengals would have taken him if he was there. It's one of those things where you're like, add that to this offense, man. Oh my, don't even know now. How do you want to defend these guys?
Right.
To keep it going, they were giving Mixon like 75% of the snaps too in running back. So you weren't getting anyone else that was explosive or better in the passing game in there. And that was limiting their offense in a lot of ways. And then overall, I think it took the line a little bit to gel. The last few weeks have been really good. So I think for the first time in a long time, they can actually block up front.
Yeah. So let's start on the defensive side of the ball here, where I'm kind of curious. We've seen some different things, but I want to start up front because this front has been such a weapon for Lou Anarumo, and a guy who I think was maybe questioned at the time of the signing and then proved that, hey, he was worth the contract. Even through those first 2 years, Trey Hendrickson, I think, is pretty easily having his best season as a pro now, even after how good he started out here. He has been dominant, just consistently creating pressure. So one, talk about how he has been up to now, and then obviously, what are you guys hearing on his availability? I think it's pretty early and precautionary of a do not practice for participate for today. How is that looking going into the week?
Yeah, the Bengals defensive line is interesting because Hendrickson is, in my opinion, an elite pass rusher, elite edge rusher. He's one of the few guys that plays right end, and that's it. He's not going to move. Like, that's where he's going to line up all day. It's going to be Dawkins versus Hendrickson, and he's not going to go anywhere else. He may loop inside once or twice a game. That's about it. And he still finds a way to win. And he's an elite athlete with a little bit of tightness around the arc with super short arms. So, like, watching him play and trying to go into power moves and hit face to face with guys because he doesn't have the length, and then to be able to rip off of it or swipe off of it, he's really fun to watch. And he's not a good run defender, so you can run his way and try and get him to bail out or over pursue and not really contain and set the edge. So he's got his issues, and that's probably why he's not thought of it more highly around the league. But this is the guy that if you let him, he will beat you, number one. But number two, it's in clutch or situations where it's like, geez, where's the pass rush been all day? We need someone to make a play. And there goes Trey Hendrickson. There he goes. Finally, we got one on third down. Get the ball back to the offense. This is what he's paid to do. And the other guys around him are not good pass rushers. Like Sam Hubbard's a good player, a fine player.
Hustle
He's Aaron Schobel, right? Like he'll give you 7 sacks a year, 8 sacks, and high effort. I mean, that's fine. You'll take that, but he's not winning one-on-one unless you roll out someone that shouldn't be playing right tackle in the NFL, or BJ Hill is an okay player. If he gets you 6 sacks, you're happy with that as a pass rusher. DJ Reader, though, is one of the best nose tackles in the league. Like, he'll wreck your whole game plan. He will, and he's winning at a high rate right now as a pass rusher because they don't have anyone else to put him out there. Normally, they want to put Reader and Hill out there as much as they do, but they've tried to draft Zach Carter last year in the 3rd round out of Florida. He has done nothing. That's what they thought they'd be able to kick him inside and let him be a 3rd down nickel rusher. They usually do it with Joseph Osai. He got hurt the last week of preseason, hasn't played much. I think it was 9 snaps last week. They like him, but he just doesn't seem like he's recovered or gotten back from his ankle injury. And then Miles Murphy, they drafted in the 1st round. He got 9 snaps last week. They really don't rotate these guys. It's going to be Hubbard, Hendrickson, Reader, and Hill. And if it's a long game, you'll see it. These guys will start to taper off towards the end, except for Hendrickson. Finds a way to make a play at the end. He's a great player. He's the best free agent signing they've ever had.
It's crazy that, it sounds like a outlandish thing to say, but I think that not only, have there been some challenging signings in the past, but there's been some good ones too. And he's been easily up there. And a guy that, I admittedly, I whiffed. I was too worried about all the other guys, what he benefited from opposite Cam Jordan, how much other talent there was on that front, and that I saw him as a Sam Hubbard guy. I saw him as I think he's good. I think he's a hustle guy. I think that he can make plays off of other people's pressure.
A cleanup guy.
Cleanup guy. I don't see him as the fulcrum causing the pressure that other guys benefit from. And he has not only been that, he's been more than that. He has been a truly exceptional pass rusher and someone that I'm concerned about going.
If you remember that offseason, they lost Carl Lawson, who a lot of people liked. I mean, he continued to win and create pressures. He couldn't disengage in like that 3rd phase of pass rushing where you create the sack, right? That was his issue. But he created a lot of plays for people around him, and we're getting a guy that looked like he was more of the beneficiary of other people creating plays. And it was like, I don't know if this is going to work. People had reservations about it. You're right. And Bengals fans were having the same conversations. They weren't sure that was a great trade-off. It ended up being completely excellent.
Oh, yeah, actually a huge win. I mean, a guy that actually I'm kind of surprised the Jets didn't move on from this past week because he's not even getting on the field for them.
To be fair, he got hurt right away for the Jets, which has been his thing.
I think that's what happens when you go to the Jets. At the next level, talk about a guy who was maybe my favorite value from a free agent signing this offseason. Jermaine Pratt was a guy that, we certainly had targeted as a possibility to go after as a replacement for Tremaine Edmonds or seeing out there as a guy. And I think the way you described Trey Hendrickson clicks for me as well, in that, maybe not play in, play out flash plays, but in critical moments, I just see both Pratt and Wilson step up and make plays and just are both versatile enough where they have ability in the run game. They're not a liability there. They have ability in the pass game. They're not a liability there. They're not talked about with the Fred Warners and the, I guess Darius Leonard, depending on if people still like him, or even Matt Milano.
Smith.
Yeah, Roquan Smith. But when I turn on Bengals games, I see them make plays as often as those guys do.
That Pratt play against Purdy,
insane,
completely changed that game. They were about to score, tighten that game up, and that could have gone a pick six. It was an incredible play.
Yeah, and we call him playoff P or playoff Pratt because he just finds a way to make a play in clutch situations. It's weird to say, and I even get I'm feeling embarrassed or have a little goosebumps right now, whatever, a mix of both, because we went so long without having anyone on the defense that can make a clutch play. I mean, you remember this team went to 5 straight playoff appearances under Marvin Lewis, 6 out of 7 years. You couldn't buy somebody to make a play when you needed it. And it's like I've mentioned that about Hendrickson. We've seen Hubbard do this. He's not supposed to. He runs a 5 flat, and all of a sudden he goes 99 yards for a touchdown in a wild card game. It's how does that happen? But yeah, Logan Wilson has. Jermaine Pratt has. Pratt, for whatever, he had the interception off Derek Carr for their first playoff win in 35 years to end, the drought there. So he's always found a way to come up with it. Both guys are highly athletic, really good in coverage. I think Pratt's better in man coverage, where Logan Wilson's a better zone guy. Logan Wilson gets his hand on the ball a ton. He's got the most interceptions since he's come in the league at the linebacker position. And he probably has another 5 or 6 pass deflections this year. So it's really dangerous to throw over the middle on those guys. And I'm with you. I thought they got value for both of them. I mean, they're paying $15 million total for the both of them
combined.
And that's about an average for over the time of the next 3 years. They're both signed. When you think of like what Tremaine Edmonds gets, he's getting $15 million right off the bat, where you're spending 2 on these guys. I'd rather have the 2. I know you guys have already 100%. Probably have talked about the situation, the linebacker situation in Buffalo. From our perspective, when we saw Edmonds get that, we're like, man, Pratt's going to be gone. Like the linebackers are getting paid. And then it was like a stalemate at linebacker. No one got paid. And then like David Long and all these guys are getting $5 million a year. I was like, oh, come on, Pratt, come on back for that.
Yeah. No, it was huge. And I think seeing that come back that way was a fantastic value for Cincinnati. And I was even like, oh, well, man, maybe we should have been in on that bidding to get a little bit more there. Going back one more layer, I think there was some question. You talk about that Trey Hendrickson, Carl Lawson swap. This year, it was at safety. It was, hey, we invested in Dax Hill. He was kind of a weapon that Anarumo could play with last year, but didn't have like a defined, consistent every down role. And then all of a sudden, like, hey, can you step in and fill those shoes? Like, hey, this is a big piece of this defense. I know, Aaron loved Cam Taylor-Britt coming out in the draft. I think he's really started to step up more. I think Mike Hilton is right there with Taron Johnson as 2 of the most underrated nickel in the league with what they can do coming up. And as Eric likes to say, firing their gun, like just throwing their reasonably small bodies around with reckless abandon. I love seeing that style of play. How has the center of that come together with the shifts in the safeties, a guy like Hilton who was already playing well last year? How has that come together where it was, I think, where I had some question coming into the year of, hey, are they going to be able to replace the level that we saw the last couple of years?
Yeah, because they had Jesse Bates and Von Bell, and that was one of the better tandems in the league. You guys know, Buffalo's had a great safety tandem for a long time. You kind of get used to it and say, like, oh, this corner is really good. Is he? Or is the safety play that good where you don't have to worry about it? Or the linebacker, this guy's really good in coverage. Is it? Or the safety's that good at making sure they're in the right situation and get the right play call and correct checks right before the snap happens. You lose Bell and Bates, it's going to sting. But what the Bengals did was the year before they draft Dax Hill in the first round, they say, hey, you're going to learn under these guys, soak in everything you can. We're going to sprinkle you in as we feel fit, as your rookie year 2, be ready to go. And Dax, honestly, I love watching Dax Hill play. He's super athletic. You can put him down in man cover with a tight end with him, and Lou Anarumo will do it all day. You're going to watch. It's going to be Kincaid and Dax in the slot on each other, and that's going to be so much fun to watch. And being able to do that, like, you don't have a lot of safeties that you feel that comfortable. Like, hey, go just play man coverage. And they'll bring in their 3rd-round pick out of Alabama, Jordan Battle. It'll be a 3-safety look. They'll put Mike Hilton at safety and rotate that way, because then they'll bring Chidobe Awuzie in to play the slot, or DJ Turner to play the slot, and kick Mike Hilton to safety. The guy they signed to hopefully help replace the veteran leadership was Nick Scott from the Rams. He's been okay. He's another highly athletic dude. He runs a 4.3. You see him, he'll fly around for no reason. He's like a dog chasing a car. He doesn't know where he's going or what he's doing, but he knows he's getting there as fast as possible, and he'll run into you with his full speed. That has value. But, man, I think if you're going to target somebody, I think you can target Nick Scott and get him to make a mistake once in a while. His awareness is super acute. Like, remember the Madden Vision cones? His would be completely like looking down a hallway. If he doesn't see it right in front of him, you can hit him with cracked blocks and misdirections, and he'll be running the wrong way, full speed, 100 miles an hour. He's going that way. Ball's going that way. But at corner, Cam Taylor-Britt, I think he's a good player. He's physical. He's strong. Not the most agile guy. He doesn't have the best ball skills. But you know what? He'll press you to death, man. There's a couple weeks ago against Seahawks. DK Metcalf, Cam Taylor-Britt. Yeah. That's the perfect guy for Cam Taylor-Britt to cover. Mm-hmm. He's long, physical, strong, well-built. He'll press and run. They're not going to they're changing directions like boats together, but it doesn't matter because Cam got him out of the game so quickly. That first drive,
your brother has it right here. It was showing up. He was visibly frustrated.
He got a penalty. He went and took a swipe at Cam Taylor-Britt and got a 15-yard penalty. And then there was eventually comes down to like the end of the 3rd quarter. The Seahawks could have got back in the game, and DK kind of quits on the route. Cam Taylor-Britt picks it off. It's like, okay, you're out of the game now. I guess you're hurt or whatever's happening, because he ended up missing practice the next Wednesday. DJ Turner on the other side, super speed guy. super fast. He's frail, kind of skinny. Not always going to get in there and tackle. Not the way that Cam Taylor-Britt and Mike Hilton will. But I think he's soaking some of that up. It's funny, they all start to soak up a little bit of Mike Hilton. You can tell that he's the leader of the corner room. And I think that's some of the communication they lost with Bates and Bell was, hey, linebackers, we paid you guys. You guys are going to do a little bit more. But also Mike Hilton. We want you on the field like the Bills. The Bengals will stay in nickel no matter what because they want the Taron Johnson out there. They want the Mike Hilton out there. So even if you're going to go out there in 12 personnel or even sometimes mix it up with 2 running backs like the 49ers did, Bengals said, fine, we'll stay in our nickel and we'll cover it that way. And Mike Hilton will help with the communication. So they like their corner room. They're fast, except for Hilton. You can get Hilton in man coverage and actually get him. Go after him because that's the way to do it. Otherwise, he's a menace.
Before we swap over to the offensive side of the ball here, and I take it, is Lou Anarumo going to get head coaching? Is he going to get a job or a sniff at it? I feel like
I still can't believe he didn't get that Cardinals job and they gave it to that cringe weirdo.
Yeah, although they're playing hard for him, but he's in deserving territory right now, right?
Yeah, the Cardinals had their mind made up on Gannon, from what I understand, and so Lou didn't get that job. I think he wanted it. I think he was kind of heartbroken when he didn't. We had Mike Zimmer for a long time as well, and he was a really good defensive coordinator, and he would go on interviews. It took about 3 years for a team to finally, musical chairs, no one left. All right, now we'll take a Mike Zimmer. And he was good for the Vikings. I mean, for what they had and, what they were working with at quarterback. I think Lou's probably in a similar situation, but again, I would only, this is going off the rails here, but I would only go to a team that had a quarterback or was in position to draft one. Like, I'm not even the Cardinals with the whole Kyler situation.
If Staley gets fired and you can go out there and have somebody finally take a hold of the talent on that roster, and you have Herbert over there and you could bring somebody with, for my money, he's the best in-game adjustment guy in the league. I think he's got what Belichick used to have with his fastball, in that, like, you have to have your scripted stuff, you have to have your pivots ready ahead of time, and then you have to know you're also going to have to counter to something you're not expecting,
whatever
he's going to bring you something you don't know.
There's gonna be 1 or 2 looks that he'll give you every single game where it's like, oh, we haven't seen that yet. And this is, even if you're even for someone like me who watches the tape every week, I go, what was that? They haven't pulled it out,
it's awesome. It's awesome.
Or we haven't seen it in 10 weeks. But you know what he does do? He burns a few plays in the first 2 drives. So score on those first 2, because it's gonna be like a third down look where he's like, you're sure he's blitzing, and then he does blitz. Okay, it's like, okay, and then he's gonna show you that again in the fourth quarter on a third down where they need a stop now, and he's gonna show it exactly the same, and the guys are gonna line up exactly the same. They're gonna have the same mannerisms, and it's gonna be exact. Then they're going to drop 8. And it's going to be like, oh, I thought they were doing it. They looked like they were blitzing. They really do pull that string at the right time. And if something's not working, that's the other part too. For, like, we can talk up a good coordinator. They will switch completely at halftime if they have to. If it's not working, they'll go, okay, next thing you know, they're a 3-4 defense the rest of the game. They're zone defense the rest of the game. They're blitzing the rest of the game. They're dropping 8 the rest of the game. Whatever it has to be, they will do it and figure it out and go and switch to it. So even if you're having a great first half, man, they're going to completely pull the cord on that defense and go to something else in the second half.
Yeah, for sure. So let's get over to this offensive side of the ball. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on Joe Burrow. We all know who he is. We all know he's special. And now that he's healthy, that's a terrifying prospect for this Bills defense.
It's really annoying.
Aaron Schatz, our friend over at Fantasy Does DVOA, was talking about how the Bengals defense was struggling in those first 4 weeks of the season, and his next sort of corrected. And I think he had him at 7th over the last 4 weeks. And then the Bills, since the Milano, Daquan Jones, and Trey White injuries, have been 28th in DVOA over the last 4 weeks. So not an awesome time to face a healthy Joe Burrow. So we don't have to spend a lot of time there. Before we get into, I'll break it down a little differently than we do in other weeks where we go through each position. I want to spend some focus on this offensive line because we've played the Bengals a few times here now. So we know the personnel in terms of the skill positions, what we're facing. But this offensive line, a lot of new names. This has been a piece that has probably been the biggest point of contention, I would guess, for Bengals fans, of not being able to protect Joe Burrow, not being able to really establish that offensive line. You make some investment here. You got some new names in here. Tell us about how it's gone so far. And it really, to your point earlier, it seems to be clicking a little bit here over the last couple of games.
Yeah, so they have 1 starter still remaining from that 2021 Super Bowl year, and that's Jonah Williams, who was the left tackle, drafted 10th overall. He is now the right tackle, and he got moved kind of unceremoniously. He didn't even know that they were signing Orlando Brown. He never got a heads up. He was kind of disgruntled about it. But that's kind of how it goes sometimes. If you give up 13 sacks in a season, they're like, hey, we like you, but we don't like you protecting his blind side, if that's even still a thing, which is a whole other conversation. So they signed Orlando Brown, and he's been as advertised. He's a big 6'8", 360-pound long dude. He's going to make you run around a mountain in order to get to the quarterback, right? But he's not the most athletic guy, and sometimes his aggressiveness wavers, and sometimes it's like, did you get off the ball as fast as you could have there? And he's got his issues, but he'll lean on you in the run game, and he'll make it hard and make it take a full 3 seconds to get around him, and the ball's already out. So he works for this offense in a lot of ways. At left guard, it's Cordell Volson, last year's 4th-round pick, North Dakota State. So we got a guy that's in a heavy run scheme in college. They're a good program, but it is D2, FCS. You can beat him by crossing his face. If you can get Ed Oliver to step in, jab out, and go back in on him, you can beat him. But he is big. He's 6'5", 330-something pounds. He and Orlando Brown on the left side are big. It's a big combo, as big as anyone in the league. And then they got Ted Karras at center, consummate pro. He'll do his thing. He's given up, I think, 4 sacks this year, though. But he's actually been playing pretty well. It's just, I think if defenses are going to try and isolate a guy, you're going to either try and beat Volson with some finesse or isolate and get Ted Karras one-on-one with a guy.
I was saying, were 2 of those sacks to Armstead?
At least one was. One was. And they've all come in previous weeks. It's just they're blitzing a guy right up the middle, or they're looping a guy back to the middle, and you end up with a D-end on Karras, and Myles Garrett's like crossing over him at the snap and beating him. It's like, what do you want to do?
Nobody's blocking Myles Garrett.
He's not going to be able to block him. No. So, it is what it is. If you're going to isolate him, that's how I would do it. Try and, maybe rush guys from the outside and loop someone back in on Karras. Alex Kapp at right guard, we love him. Actually, he's a very fine, good, probably a top 15 or so guard in the league. Better pass protector, in my opinion, than run blocker lately. But he did have a really good run blocking game last week, so maybe that's starting to come around for him. And then Jonah Williams is playing right tackle, and he's been fine. He's actually making himself a lot of money. He's 25 years old, 5th year, former 1st-round pick. He's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. He's on the 5th-year option right now. He is playing really well, even though he's given up 3 sacks already this year. I think, again, that's kind of how he is. When he gets beaten, it's for a sack because he just gets completely killed in the first phase of the pass rush, and then he gives up the sack. Otherwise, you won't call his name the rest of the game. And I think he's been pretty well. So the O-line as a whole, probably mid 15, 16, 17th ranked. But, man, we'll take that right now because they've been bottom 5 for so long.
Yeah, I think they're 7th right now in adjusted sack rate with the O-line, according to DVOA, which is way better than it's been for you guys in the past. The run, you're about middle of the pack and some of the other statistics. But again, we had that conversation for the Bills. Those first couple of years of Josh Allen was atrocious offensive line. Just getting to average is such a huge leap in terms of what you're able to do. So with that offensive line, though, I put out after the San Francisco game that I put out, and I got a lot of flack for this, that I was concerned that Joe Mixon's going to run all over this Buffalo Bills defense. And it wasn't necessarily because Joe Mixon's had a lights out year. He's playing his best football. To me, it was, one, the injuries on the Buffalo Bills defense concern me just for any team that has any semblance of a run game, right? They played Tampa last week, and Tampa has been pretty terrible in the run game, so it wasn't really even tested. And so the Bills are able to get
Rashad White had his most yards of the
season. And he had his most yards, and he still had his best day. And the Bills were able to get them into some 3rd and longs and play that dime look, and that's going to play into the Bills' hands. I don't think Cincinnati is going to allow them to do that. But what concerns me the most is, and it kind of plays into this offensive line, is the way Cincinnati attacks horizontally. Right. And you talked about it a little earlier when they're running up the middle, it wasn't successful, but being able to get Joe Mixon and these linemen out into space and attack that way, that concerns me for the Bills. So do you want to talk about where this run game has come now that things are getting back to Joe Burrow being able to go outside and get him going on the outside a little bit more?
Yeah. So when they're in shotgun, and they will run inside a whole bunch out of that, it's very RPO based. So they're going to read your linebacker or read your safety and say, all right, is he coming into the box? Is the nickel corner coming into the box? If not, we're going to run the ball with Joe Mixon. It's what plagued really I think the Bills, in my opinion, last playoff game, where the Bills were just, no, we're not going to add another guy to the box. And if we are, it's going to be based after motion, and it's going to be a nickel corner, and the linebacker is going to motion out. So now you're even smaller in the box, and the Bengals would run on it. And so they'll have the option for Burrow with a built-in wide receiver screen. So that's the horizontal part, right? So it's do I want to give this up the middle on a dive, or do I want to flip it out to Jamar Chase where it's one-on-one and maybe he can make someone miss? After the catch, Jamar Chase is very hard to bring down. He's super strong and he runs a 4.3. He makes
Boyd
it
too.
tough.
Boyd runs hard. Yeah.
And T. Higgins will just lean on you and fall forward for 3 yards. So it's like, great. Then we'll take that every time. But they really only throw it to Chase in this, and that's how lately he's been getting 15 targets a game, because it's like 4 or 5 of them are off these RPO screens. And they ran a fake screen last week against the Niners. This was the nail in the coffin. So they did it about 4 or 5 times, showed it maybe 15 times. And then in the fourth quarter, they needed a touchdown and they get a fake screen. Chase releases and
just
goes
throws
wide
the
open.
cornerback. Yeah,
completely right, because they showed it so many times.
Yeah.
So now that they can go under center, and they're in Zac Taylor and Brian Callahan, they are wide zone background. They will get in there and they will run it. They'll go 12 personnel. They did a couple 13 personnel last week and try and stretch you out a little bit. Otherwise, they are typically a man gap scheme from shotgun. And Mixon last week looked as good as he has. They're coming off a bye week. Maybe he was just fresh. But again, I don't know why. And maybe that's part of the age. He's 27 now, and people may think that's young. 27 is when you see running backs start to falter a little bit. So is it the inconsistencies of every week of not being able to, get back up to 100% by Sunday, every Sunday? I'm not really sure. I'm speculating on that, of why these guys start to fall off. So will Mixon be as bursty as he was last week? We'll find out. But you're right. I remember with my brother, we're at the tailgate for last year's playoff game, and he says Daquan Jones is inactive because he's hurt. And I said, oh, they're going to run it down their throats. And, and it wasn't me being an arrogant Bengals fan. I thought Daquan Jones was the man, but it's also when you see that happen in the opponent and how good he was, I think the Bills are going to struggle to find who that other guy is going to be, if that's Poona Ford, or if they're going to find a way to get another defensive tackle in the room, or, that's not going to be by Sunday. So I think the Bengals will lean on the run game.
Yeah, a definite concern. And then into this passing game here to sort of top off the bow on this offense, to your point, again, I think the concern for me is the Bills have struggled to come up and wrap up and tackle, and you have to do that, right? Again, they are going to stress the Bills in that horizontal, those RPO, getting it out to Chase, letting him to make plays. We've seen, I'm a big supporter of Dane Jackson as an adequate cornerback, but he's had some big misses. You get Taron Johnson out in space. I love him as a tackler. He's a little bit better in the run game than coming out on those screen plays one-on-one. I don't love that with Chase. How do you expect them to attack this Bills zone heavy scheme and knowing that they haven't been swarming to the ball and tackling in those situations?
Yeah, so the Bengals are 4-0 versus the NFC West teams. And why do I say that? Because the data says those 4 teams play as much quarters coverage as anyone in the league. And the Bills do a lot too. I mean, they will mix it up, and the Bills are more evenly spread. But the Bengals, when they played those 4 teams and they went in the quarters, they diced them. And all their combo routes just completely ended up with Chase running free against the Cardinals for the deep bomb, or getting T. Higgins on these digs, backside digs. Like, they've got enough built in. That's what the Bengals do well on offense, is they have an answer for whatever you want to play. If you can disguise it well enough, it can make Burrow hold the ball for a second, and then that's when the pass rush gets home and if the offensive line's having a day. But otherwise, they'll go up there and they're just looking and saying, what are you guys playing? Can I decipher it correctly? And okay, this must be this combo route to this side, or we've got this package play and we're going to do this on this side, or we're going to hand the ball off. Like, every play is almost going to look the same to them, except for their shot plays, where they'll get to that 40 to 50 yard range and maybe give a play action, maybe try to roll the pocket and make something happen downfield. Other than that, they are, what are you giving us? And we have something already built into our offense or our play here to defeat it. So I think if Buffalo wants to mix it up a little bit, and having these 2 good veteran safeties for Buffalo is the key to me. I think who was missing last year in the playoff game, and I think then yeah, and then someone else.
Poyer was like held together with duct tape, and
it was
braces.
Daquan Jones, Hyde, and Von Miller all missing in that playoff game.
The Bills really were showing like a cover 2 and then a quarters and maybe some cloud once in a while, but they weren't like rotating. They weren't showing anything pre-snap, post-snap. It was just way too easy on Burrow in the offense. You've got to show one thing, and then like, he's going to hard count because it's going to be at home because he wants to see what you're going to do. You've got to hold your water even to maybe a second afterwards and then rotate it. The Ravens are really good at getting Burrow on this. Yeah. Even if it's not like maybe you do a half field where it's middle field close showing it on one side and middle field open, showing it on the other side and try and confuse them that way. The Ravens do that a lot. So the Bills just have to be more creative. And if they, they were hamstring last time in the playoff game, we'll see if now.
I would say we're a bit hamstring still.
So as we go through and put you on the spot and ask you for your prediction for what we're going to see here in the game, I want to ask any concerns with the practice report here. I know obviously we saw Trey have to step out of the game. Seemed like at first it seemed very concerning. Then all of a sudden he was kind of working it on the sideline. Does this seem precautionary? Is there any concern that he may miss the game? I don't think any of the rest of the injuries there are of a serious degree, but any concerns with the injury report heading into the game?
No, the two limited, Brown and Akeem Davis-Gaither, those were previous injuries. They're still managing that to get them to play. Sounds like both Akeem Davis-Gaither's missed the last few weeks. He's their third linebacker and one of their special teams captains type guys. So really, how does that affect the game? But Orlando Brown played last week through the groin. I expect him to play again. Joe Mixon, the chest thing, he practiced today. So it's not something that showed up today. This is from the game. He should be fine. Be able to work through that. Yeah, really, as the guys who did not participate, Josh Dubois, the backup nose. We'd like to have him. It sounds like they're working through that and expect him to play. Hendrickson, they said they expect him to play for Sunday. He hurt this, I want to say the first quarter. It may have been early second quarter versus the Niners. Looked like an ankle, kind of got stepped on, weird, ankle flexion thing going on. They call it a foot for whatever reason. Maybe it is the foot. But he ended up getting it taped up and playing the rest of the game, playing a lot. I thought they should have rotated him even more. So he must be fine. They're just managing it and making sure they don't overwhelm him.
Everyone's hurt at this point in the year. Anyway,
yeah,
right?
It's a war of attrition. It's the 100% injury rate. So let us know, what kind of game do you expect on Sunday night, and give us a score.
So both these teams on defense have given up a lot of explosive plays this year. And I kind of sounds fun. I'd like to watch a game like that. But at the same time, the Bengals have scored first on their first drive the last 3 games, and that's really helped them on their 3-game win streak. This defense, you brought up the difference between what was first 4 weeks versus the last 4 weeks, or 3-3. When you can score first on offense, and this is true around the league, right? Game script, being ahead of the game, defenses look so much better. But it's very true for the Bengals, and I think it's because Lou likes to burn those plays in the first couple of drives, that it's okay if we're scoring on offense, he can burn more plays and know what to pull later in the game to really, finish the game as they need to on defense. So when they're not scoring, it's much harder on this defense. Goes without saying. Look for that then. Can the Bengals get off to a hot start? They did the last 2, game and, quarter, whatever that was, game and a couple drives. When they played last year, they scored on their opening, both of those fairly easily too. So can they continue that? Will that look the same? If they can get out and score right away, typically I feel really good about this team. When they don't, and this is over Zac Taylor's career, if they don't score on either of the first 2 drives, it's just sometimes they're playing rock and the other team's got paper. And it's just, man, why do, on offense, they don't seem to be able to do what they do on defense, where it's, hey, it's halftime or third quarter, whatever's not working, let's completely flip it on its head. On offense, they don't seem to be able to do that. And sometimes they turn it up because now things are working, but they don't change what they're doing. They just try to eventually hit what they thought would work all game, and it hits for them. So those first 2 drives may tell us a lot about how the game goes. I expect to be high scoring. I'm looking at like a 30-27 type close game.
I will give you a little bit of solace that'll make you sleep better.
Okay.
Sean McDermott / Leslie Frazier defenses, I think it's really they almost give up those first drives to see how they're going to be attacked and then adjust from
That's
there.
what I'm saying about
this play. It makes me crazy. Makes me crazy.
It's almost consistent that teams just drive
after the first 2 drives then.
Yeah.
Well, look at so that the Dolphins game went touchdown. It was 21-14 before anybody got the first stop. Yeah. And then all of a sudden they shut the faucet off, and I was like, what the hell happened? Why did you let them march up and down the field on the first 2 drives? So we'll see where that goes. And it is an interesting game when you look at like the coin toss, and do you take it and try to get a lead, whereas a lot of strategy tells you to defer and take it after the half to try to get the double dip.
13 straight games the last year, and we want the ball, we're going to score type attitude, and then it wasn't working. They stopped doing that, and we're trying to double dip on the halftime.
Yeah, I do like.
All right, man. Let the folks know one more time what they can expect coming up next on Bengals on the Brain.
Yeah, this week actually I got Glenn, my brother, coming on, Bills fan. We're gonna have a conversation, talk more about this game, preview this game a little bit. So it might be interesting for your followers there. But otherwise, I'm watching film, going over data, whatever it may be. In terms of not just the Bengals or the entire NFL. Should be using more motion at the snap, all these things. That's the trends. What's happening. And then when it gets to draft season and things like that, it's player evaluation, less X's and O's, and probably very similar to what you guys cover here, but. Yeah, that's at Bengals on the Brain on YouTube and on Twitter at Joe Goodberry.
As somebody who has gone to games, I've gone to Bears, Bills games with my brother here in Buffalo. I'm super excited for you guys. You guys are both, I'm big fans of both you guys. Super excited for you. And also, side note, metabolism in the history of the internet, like the way that man eats,
the
and
pictures
how
of
he
food that he shares, and then how he looks does not.
It doesn't match.
I don't know.
He has good self-control, so he'll get that, and then he'll have 2 slices of pizza and 4 wings.
Because it seems like all he eats is large pizzas and big piles of wings. That's the vibe.
That's correct.
Yeah.
It's a good 5 out of 7 days. That's probably what it is.
I respect it.
Yeah, good for him. Good for him.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good time though. We're excited. I'm happy to come on with you guys anytime. So hopefully we've got one more game.
I was just gonna say, hopefully we've got one more coming up here. I have a feeling this isn't the last time these teams are gonna match up this year. Let's hope both teams leave healthy out of Sunday night so we can see another good one sometime in January.
Yeah, no doubt.
All right, appreciate it, Joe.
Enjoy, man. Stay safe.
Thanks for having me.
Always one of my favorite guests to have on. Joe's awesome. For anybody who doesn't, make sure you do check out Bengals on the Brain. Joe and everything that he's got going over there is really, really fantastic. Make sure you guys give him a shout. You'll see some of the information in the show description here. I'll give you dealer's choice. Do you want to go into the debut of our new design for this week, or do you want to talk a little bit about the trade deadline?
Well, I think if we go into the debut of the design, our fresh look, at least my fresh look, may segue real well into what so let's do it. Let's talk about this design for the week.
I love it. So obviously we've had a couple different ones that have come up over time here, and this week once again just does not miss the folks and the artists that Greg and Melissa have pulled together over at Leftern are just second to none. This one, a shout out to kind of a Lucky Charms deal with some Tony the Tiger going on here.
Flakes down there,
yeah. General Thrills. So the week 9 of the season 5 of the Leftern Game Day series is out now. This week's print was designed by local artist Natalie Anspach and is titled General Thrills. It is an homage to one of Buffalo's chief exports. For anyone who walks around in the city, certain times of the day you can smell the Cheerios. 100 stamped and numbered prints get released each week on Instagram and Twitter at Leftern Co. So give them a follow. The website to purchase is www.leftern.co. Grab one before they're gone. Individual print sales this season help support Buffalo Cares, a local nonprofit that helps find homes for abandoned and sheltered animals locally. I love this one. You can see the little Lucky Charms marshmallows that the football player / leprechaun is juggling are like little football icons and wings and helmets and foam fingers and everything. I think it's a really cool design. I thought Natalie knocked this one out of the park.
Yeah, it's super clever and ties into the city, right? I always tell people when they come here, when they're downtown, to keep a nose out for some Cheerios in the breeze. So yeah, super nice. And these ones, like there's cool ones that are on games that aren't that cool of games, but these Buffalo Cincinnati is a big game, and that's what I think this series is the coolest. Like some of the ones I have behind me and some of the ones I haven't even gotten up yet are just from big games that we've had, and that it allows me to sort of commemorate those games all the time. I get them framed and I put them up, and I can remember those games all the time. And this might be one of those games, at least on paper here, getting ready for it. It might be. So though the big games are the ones that you also want to get out and buy, not just because it's a cool print, but because it could be some cool memories associated to it.
Yeah, this is a really cool one. Like you said, a great way when you tie it into an awesome game to be able to go through. And we kind of talked about that. The one last week I don't think got enough attention because people were kind of down after some of the rough games, and it was an awesome print. This one you get both. We're coming off a win. It's a fantastic matchup. Make sure you go and support them and check them out. And I'll let you run with it there. So what is your fresh design of the week coming after some of the new additions that we've seen?
Yeah, specifically, I think the fresh design of the week might not actually play out this week. We'll see. Obviously, he showed up on the injury report as just got here today, but the Bills did make a trade for Rasul Douglas, sort of out of nowhere too, Greg. This is the most fun thing I think about the Brandon Beane, Sean McDermott, Buffalo Bills era is you hear all these rumors and who they're associated to, and we all speculate and want all the nice things and go a little crazy during this trade deadline. And it's getting crunch time. I was on Twitter the entire day, and it's like 3:00, and people started getting real mad. And they're like, he's not doing anything. He doesn't want to win. The Jalen Johnson thing's not going to happen, all this stuff. And then out of nowhere, and we'll give you some credit if people turned into the trade deadline extravaganza, you spoke on the possible availability, and making sense of Rasul Douglas for the Buffalo Bills. But really out of nowhere comes Brandon Beane, deadline, making the move at the deadline to bring in something to this defense. You lose Trey White. I'm a fan of Dane Jackson, but I'm more of a fan of Dane Jackson as cornerback 3, right? And so having
the luxury is depth.
Correct. Having somebody that's there for you. But Rasul Douglas is a super fit. He fits right into what this scheme has and what it needs. He's been a free agent wish list target of both of ours in the past. And so it did make sense. It sort of came out of nowhere for the Bills making this move. And so again, this might not be the fresh design of the week for this week, but I do think this is going to give the Bills some of that ability that Joe was talking about here that they lost last year when they lost players, and the ability to disguise some coverages and have the types of players on the back end that you can do some of the things that Sean McDermott wants to do and be more aggressive and play the type of defense that he wants. I think Rasul Douglas is going to give them that going forward. And again, maybe we'll see him this week, maybe we won't. But I do think soon you're going to get some much needed addition to this defense where you've lost so much over the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think that, for anyone who wasn't plugged in and refreshing their devices like Aaron and I were yesterday, the Buffalo Bills traded for 29-year-old cornerback Rasul Douglas from Green Bay. He is 6'2", super long arms, really good tackler, exceptional in zone coverage. He is I know, for anyone who follows Brett Coleman, one of the best football analysts out there, his comment was he was literally one of the most Bills-ish players that wasn't on the Bills roster in the entire NFL. As Aaron stated, both Aaron and I had him on our free agent wish list more than once. I had him on my wish list 3 years ago when he first went to Green Bay. I had him on my wish list again this offseason, hoping to be able to get him. He is a perfect fit, as Eric Turner touched on with his film breakdown, one of the most consistent, his ability to play quarters, cover 6 and cover 2 and make as many plays on the ball as what he does is uncanny. You're just not usually in position to do that in the coverages that those are. And he is around the ball and making plays on the ball all the time. He's not a superstar. He's not Patrick Surtain. He's not Jalen Ramsey. He's not
he's not even Trey White, like prime Trey White.
Yeah, he's not even a Trey White. He is an upgrade over both Christian Benford and Dane Jackson. He's going to be our number 1 corner the moment he steps on the field. And the fact that even though it may stress people out and it was less than an hour before the trade deadline ended, the fact that Brandon Beane went out and made a material starting caliber addition to this defense to fill one of the holes. I know there's been a lot of discussion on the potential to get Daquan Jones back. I think there's a pretty good feeling about that. There's a less than 50-50, but non-zero chance that Matt Milano could come back. I think that obviously we know Trey White and an Achilles, you're not going to come back.
I think he should have consulted Aaron Rodgers' doctors, but whatever.
Yeah, maybe. I think that if you listen to Dolphins Making Love,
right. Darkness retreats,
that helps you. Yeah, darkness retreats, ayahuasca. Maybe Trey could be recovering faster if he was to look into all the available options. I was excited. He was right there on my list. I had Jalen Johnson. I had Dante Jackson. I had Sean Murphy-Bunting and Rasul Douglas. Those were the guys I wanted. Cornerback was my number 1 position that I wanted. And to get one of the guys that I targeted that I thought made so much sense, one, validates the work that we put in, that we do have a good pulse on this team. But also just to know that, hey, Brandon Beane saw the opportunity here. He wasn't going to sit out his hands and was able to come in. And I'm excited to see what it does. I think we need to be patient in that, he literally didn't even get into town until this morning. He was just taking his physical. He couldn't even practice yet. I don't even know if we can expect him to be game day active on Sunday. Yeah. I'm going to say it's possible, but unlikely. I don't think he's going to be game day active immediately. I think it's going to take a minute. Maybe the next week we see a chance where they can go in and maybe he does a bit of a rotation and it's him and Dane Jackson rotating every other drive for a minute. That would be against the Broncos. And then maybe against the Jets or the Eagles, we see him come in and be able to do that. The nice part is we do have a chance there with a 3-game stretch of Broncos, Jets, Eagles, and then the bye. And then you have 5 games coming out of the bye where he can be there starting every single week. So I know some fans are going to get all in their feelings about Nyheim Hines and how he was used last year. This is different. They traded for him as a starting cornerback. He is going to be an every snap starting quarterback. Just because you don't see that Sunday or even against the Broncos does not mean that's coming. I will wager an incredible amount of money. He is going to be the starting quarterback and playing that down the stretch. It may not be the first game that we see him. Give him some patience. Our coverage and secondary scheme is based on communication and collaboration and working together as a unit. It's going to take a second to build that in. That may not be there this moment. Just because he is a good scheme fit and is going to be a good fit doesn't mean it happens instantly. Give John Butler and Sean McDermott a minute to get Rasul Douglas in the game. You hear Aaron Rodgers talk about, he described him as the smartest teammate he's ever had. You heard all of the beat reporters around Green Bay talking about how much of a leader he is, how intelligent he was, how much of a glue guy he was holding that locker room together. The Packers players talking about what a huge loss it was and how happy they were for him to go to a winning situation. This guy just oozes process in every single phase. He plays the right way. He's the right size. He tackles. He makes plays on the ball. He's awesome in zone. He's going to be a great fit. Be patient. It will come.
So are you worried that he talked trash to Josh? No, I'm just kidding.
I think the other way around. I think Josh talked trash to him.
Yeah.
But he definitely heard Josh tell him, I believe, some not safe for work.
Yeah. So some of the points you touch on, one, I think it is a perfect fit for the Bills. And one of the things that has frustrated me with even the Kaiir Elam conversation was the idea of athleticism and speed. And that that to me is trait hunting. And Rasul Douglas isn't that, right? He isn't a speedy guy. But I had this conversation with yards per pass because he didn't knock him for it, but he's not that type of athlete. But I think you can make up for the lack of speed with processing and being a smart player in film. And you see it with Rasul Douglas, like his ability to process a play. That's what gives him that ability to be in quarters coverage, to be in a cover 6 and still get back and make a play. Eric showed one where he got beat on a route. He took inside leverage, and I think it was Devontae Adams got outside of him, beat him, and he made up for that with his ability to process where he was and take the right angle. Those types of veteran things allow guys like that maybe don't have the freak athleticism to stay in the league and be able to process a play and make up for it in game speed type of situation. So I think it will be a fit. And I lean conservative on this stuff almost all the time in getting a new guy in. And my first thought was, he probably won't be inactive this week. And then you get the Broncos, you get these 2 weeks here coming up where you can rotate. We've seen the Bills do that, where they rotate guys in slowly. And then for me, it's been the Eagles. As soon as he came in, it's get him in for that Eagles game. And because that's really your stretch, right? It's Eagles, Chiefs, Cowboys. I think off the top of my head, you got that stretch coming up after those 2 games.
So Bengals, Broncos, Jets, Eagles, Chiefs.
Bengals, Broncos. Yeah, this Bengals game is going to be tough. That stinks that the trade deadline is here, and it's probably not going to work out with all the timing. You'd love to have a player like that.
I care more about having him for the Bengals rematch.
For sure. And I think that you can get through the other 2 games still doing what you were doing. I don't think that it was a need to get in. So rotate in throughout that. But then for that Eagles game, I think that's probably the biggest one where you're really going to need all hands on deck. So if it's a ramp up to that game, I'm totally happy. If it happens before, that's even better. That's a plus. But if they feel
confident, and he is a guy, because of the intelligence everybody talks about, his understanding in zone schemes. If there's a guy that has a chance to break what has been a pretty consistent trend of conservative approaches to those things, he is a guy that I guess would be the theory to do it. I think it's too much to ask in that literally being in the building for 2 days before you take off on the flight on Saturday. Can you still hear me?
But you had balloons pop up.
Did I have balloons in front of my face? I'm so confused. I'm so confused.
Most words on YouTube or something.
Live on the internet. Did Chris put balloons in front of my face? I don't understand what
I don't know.
Somebody
confused. Hit a like button or something.
Someone somewhere hit a like button. So that's a good reminder for everybody else that's listening. Maybe you can put more balloons in front of my face, and I just don't know about this. Press the like button. Go in and help us out.
And if you want us to shut up, it makes it stop talking for a second.
It did. It completely paused me. It completely stunned me.
One last thought on here.
Pointed out here. You can tell it was hysterical. Shout out to the Bills social media team. They literally put on the injury report, just got here, did not participate. It was really well done.
I'm pretty sure he was speaking on Rasul. I sort of jumped into his press conference a little late today, but he talked about certain guys can come right in, and he talked about Terrell Bernard missing most of the playing opportunities in the preseason and still being able to start. And they trusted it because of his instincts. And he was talking about Rasul's instincts. And when you have a player that has that uncoachable side of football instincts, that you feel a little bit more comfortable. You feel a little bit more comfortable putting them out there. And so that leaned me into I'm still leaning conservative, but maybe I don't think it's this week, but maybe it's earlier than I would anticipate.
Yeah. So we'll see where that goes. Another name that was kicked around that we heard earlier, we saw that the Buffalo Bills signed Leonard Fournette to the practice squad.
Yep.
I think that I'm going to read that as probably not the best news for Damian Harris, whether that's by Damian Harris's choice, neck injuries are no joke, or whether that's from the Bills medical team. Right. I'm going to read into that's probably not the best news for Damian Harris's future for the rest of this season. We'll see where that goes beyond there. But I'm going to read into that the Bills wouldn't have pursued Leonard Fournette, and Leonard Fournette would not have chosen the Bills as a landing spot if Damian Harris return was imminent. I don't believe that would be the case. And if you view it in that same lens as we needed an RB3 and we needed somebody in that same mode of between the tackles thumper, I think Leonard Fournette has that. He actually is an underrated pass catcher. He's actually a very good receiver out of the backfield. He has shown the ability to be a very good pass protector. He's not always consistent in the effort in pass protecting. So I want to be really careful. It is a name that is awesome. And I said in our Cover One staff chat that LSU Leonard Fournette was one of the baddest dudes I've ever seen on a football field. His footwork at his size and power was something I've never seen before. And it was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. And then even his first couple years in the league was awesome. Was really literally the highlight where he's telling the defender to bring it on, and then he trucks him and just goes over top of him. I think a lot of people have that in their mind. He's not that guy anymore. Yeah. He's not. Now he's still in the NFL. The Bills signed him. He did look fit in the moments we saw today, so good for him. It looks like he's in shape and ready to play. I view him as an RB3 and a guy who will be there to support Latavius Murray and James Cook, who have been a really nice 1-2 combo. I don't view him as taking anyone's job, and I don't even know if he's going to be game day active every week. Damian Harris was. We did have 3 running backs active most of the time. So I think in time, I don't think it'll be this week, but I think in time, we'll probably see Ty Johnson go back to the practice squad and Leonard Fournette probably be added to the 53. I think it's reasonable to assume he was given some level of assurance that would be the case when he signed. So I expect him to be on the 53. I would manage any expectation beyond that. He'll be on the 53-man roster. I think he'll contribute. I think I could see 10 to 12 snaps in a game like Damian Harris was giving, and I think he can do what Damian Harris was doing, and I'm good with that.
Yeah, I got a ton of flack because I didn't love it. I was just like, I don't really care. I'm not a big fan of Leonard Fournette, and I think a lot of people see those highlights and the size and think that he's going to be the goal line guy and the fix that ability for the Bills to stuff it in the goal line. I don't think he's that guy. I really don't. I think that
Latavius Murray is significant. All metrics show Latavius Murray is significantly better in short yardage than Leonard Fournette.
Yeah, I think there's just a out in the idea of what type of player he is, that he's gonna thump and get in there, and he will thump you in open space. And Eric did a great video breakdown after, and him being more of a pass catching threat and making himself available to the quarterback. And when he gets into that space with smaller defenders, then yeah, he is a nightmare to tackle. But I don't think you're going to see him lining up in short yardage situations and being the answer that the Bills have, struggled in red zone situations. I don't think Leonard Fournette's coming in for that. I think you're right. It is for Damian Harris, but I loved the Damian Harris signing at the time. I believed in James Cook. I didn't know how good James Cook was going to look. And I also didn't know how good Latavius Murray was going to look. And so I was starting to actually get frustrated. Nothing against him. I hope he recovers from his injury. I hope everything's okay there. But I was getting a little frustrated with having 3 running backs, and them it almost felt like they needed to get him in and get some touches because they had him as active, where I just really want it to be Cook and Murray. And also, Murray's not playing special teams. James Cook's not playing special teams. And Leonard Fournette for sure is not coming in playing special teams, where Ty Johnson does. So I also don't know where that fit is. And so I do see it as insurance. The one thing I will say with Latavius Murray is his age, the grind of an NFL season. Maybe there's some load management of taking some carries off of his plate so that they can really utilize him and lean into him in the playoffs, because games slow down in the playoffs. I think Sean McDermott's going to want to pound the rock in the playoffs a little bit more. So maybe there's something there. So I pumped off my not liking as much after watching Eric's video. So if you haven't watched that yet, go check it out. Really described well how they can probably utilize him in the passing game a little bit more, which James Cook has started to do. I would like to see more of that use of running backs in this offense.
2-minute drill, when you need that outlet guy or sometimes to pick up the pass, he's actually excellent. And that actually is the time where you can get him isolated in space against a smaller defender. And he can do some things. So I think there's a chance in those snippets we can see some value.
Yeah.
I know Ralph Wilson Sr. Shout out for Ralph Wilson jumping in the chat here with us. Eric was actually at that gym when he was there working out. You saw Kenneth Gainwell was there working out, Gabe Davis, and Leonard Fournette. So Eric got to see him work out in person and go down there and do some of the things. And that was at a point where he was still working back into shape and getting himself ready to get in there. And I will say, you could even visually see a difference between those clips and the clips of him here today. So, credit to him. He's gotten himself ready. He looks to be, game shape is different, but he looks to be in legit shape and ready to play. And he is, we talked about this in the chat as well. He's one of those just like genetically blessed guys who looks ridiculous. So you saw him with the short shorts and ridiculous thighs. Like, he's a crazy athlete. And if we get something out of it, that's awesome. I'm going to manage the expectations myself. I was probably in between you and some of the excitedness of other people, but I don't expect a lot from this. I expect it to be nice. I think the name value gets a lot more attention than what the actual on-field will be, but I will say we might see more of him of an offensive impact than what we saw in Nyheim Hines last year. So if that's where your bar is of like, oh my God, they didn't use Nyheim Hines at all, I think Fournette will have some impact in the passing game, and that's cool because it costs us nothing. It was a minimum contract signing to the practice squad. We'll probably elevate him a couple times, and then at some point we'll see a Ty Johnson for Leonard Fournette swap, and then he'll be on the roster, and that's cool.
I think that is the most important part of all of this that Bills fans need to also remember when we pull back and look at the whole league wide. 28-year-old running backs that are chasing Super Bowl rings don't just go join the practice squad of whatever team calls them and join. So he sees the Bills as an opportunity to compete for a title. However you view the Bills, players around the league And we've seen this time and time again. We've heard time and time again that players want to get on this team to chase that opportunity. And a guy like Ndamukong Suh might be one of those types of people. Like, there's going to be opportunities to get some of these older vets that are just hanging around in November waiting to latch on to a Super Bowl contending team. And the Bills are one of those options still, even as bad as it looks at times so far into the season.
Yeah. So one last piece, we talked about it and shared it for anybody who isn't here. If you want a chance to be able to understand, we are not, Cover One is not a news breaking organization, but there are some relationships that can share some things, specifically Eric and the relationships he's built with a lot of players and agents and people around the league. When we do have tidbits, we share it in the Cover One Slack channel. And if you want to get an opportunity to be able to get in there yourself, the best way to do it is right here. Many people ask us the best way to support us here at Cover One, and that is to sign up to become a Cover One OnePass member. That contribution helps give us the access to all the data and information we use to create the content that you love.
And I think most importantly, brings you into our community of insiders. It's a great community based on Slack. I know a lot of people don't want to be on social media anymore, or be in on those conversations. We bring all of it to you right in our great community of educated fans. And most importantly, you get access to our content creators.
Even better than that, everybody loves merch. You get awesome t-shirts, a cool decal, and a letter from the Cover One team signed directly to you.
All for $60. That gets you the entire season, next year's free agency and draft. $60. Click the link in the description. Cover One Insider. Become one today. Real quick before we move forward. Yeah, they are handsome dudes. And well-spoken too. Carl had a super chat, and I know we pulled it up, but for the podcast listeners, I just want to read it off here because super chats do get prioritized. So go ahead and send those all you want. Rasul had 5 interceptions in 2021, 4 interceptions in 2022, and 1 interception so far in 2023. If he can bring that kind of ball hawkishness, the Bills, Bean may have grabbed a gem. And I think Sal pointed out, like, in that span, the Bills have only had 12 interceptions total from DBs.
So add into that, I believe the timing of those is also incredibly helpful in that he has the most interceptions in the NFL over that span in the fourth quarter and overtime. So he has had them in critical spots in moments that really matter. You look at his number of pass breakups, consistently double digits every single season, 13, 11, 10. Like, he's making plays on the ball. He's making interceptions, multiple pick sixes, is just consistently around the ball. And that when you hear, like, Eric is very, like, cautious about how he talks about players. When you hear Eric talk about Rasul Douglas's ball skills, like, he gets all giddy and excited, and that gets me excited about what we're going to see here, and obviously played into why he was on my wish list.
Sure. My old man is a Packer fan, which makes for some weird conversations between him and my brother that's the Bears fan. Every year, twice a year, that gets weird. But he was pretty pissed. I texted him. He doesn't really, he's not on Twitter, so he doesn't pay attention to the trade deadline. He gets it the next day or something. I was like, hey, we just grabbed Rasul Douglas from you guys. And he was like, oh, you got to be effing kidding me. Like, I don't like that at all. He's probably the best player on our team. So I think a lot of Packer fans felt that
also
way.
A lot of people on Twitter know Aaron Nagler, who does the Cheesehead TV and is a really good, a big Packers content creator, maybe the biggest out there. He was, he went through and said, hey, I get it. When you're 2-6, you're going to trade away guys. This sucks. I'm so mad it's Rasul. I can't believe they traded him away. When you hear the people most plugged into the Packers talk that way, you should get excited about the kind of player they added. Again, he's not a superstar. He's not the best cornerback in the NFL, but he's a damn good player. And we just added a damn good player, and it's going to cost us like $600,000 for the rest of the year. It's perfect. It was just such a savvy move. And just to be able to break it down, basically the combo of what we gave up versus what we get. The Bills, if it was this past year, we would have traded the 91st pick in the draft to get back Rasul Douglas and the 145th pick in the draft. So we would have traded down about 50 spots to get a starting corner. So we still get back an early 5th round pick for our late 3rd round pick, because the Packers are 2-6 and aren't headed in the right direction. So it's probably going to be an earlier 5th round pick. Plus, we get the Tremaine Edmonds comp pick, which will be around pick 99. So we're still going to have a pick at the end of day 2 to have that. We get Rasul Douglas, and we get basically what I'll describe as a team option because he has a $8.25 million deal next year, which you guys know we talked about it with Jalen Johnson. He's looking for $17.5 million. Patrick Surtain's looking for $25 million.
I'm no math genius,
million,
but that's a deal.
Yeah, $8.25 million is pretty good, and it has zero guarantees. Yeah. So if we whiff, if it ends up not working out, we can cut him and owe zero. We will have no dead cap. We will have no negative. If he plays well, we just let him stay on. And if he plays awesome, we talk about extending him and going further because that was one other thing I picked up on. Justice Mosqueda, who's also a Packers guy, and Aaron Nagler both talked about the fact, with Peter Bukowski. Right?
I think I've got that guy blocked, but yeah.
Yes, I think that's the guy. The guy that you have blocked. I think all of them talked about the fact that his game is going to age incredibly well because it's not based on elite athleticism. It's based on awesome instincts and incredible ability to make plays on the ball because he knows where to be. That's going to age well. So that makes me excited about this. Maybe more than just a rest of the season rental.
For sure. And we don't have to get into here, but I got a lot of people hitting me up saying we're going to restructure Trey again. And no, you are not. You're not doing any more Trey, right?
So obviously that's a separate discussion for the offseason. There will be a hard decision coming on Trey White at some point. That hard decision is going to be in 2025.
Right.
They're like, one, they don't know how his recovery is going to go. I can guarantee you the humans that Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane are not going to preemptively write off Tre'Davious White in March before he's even had a chance to come back and just say, nope, sorry, tough luck, and cut him to take a $10 million dead cap hit. So anyone you listen to that is saying Trey White's going to get cut this offseason, use that as a mental note. That person doesn't know what they're talking about. Like plant that seed that, I shouldn't trust that person. They don't understand how roster construction.
The situation, yeah.
I guarantee you the Bills are not going to jump the gun and say, hey, we better just cut Trey White now, eat a $10 million dead cap hit, and just guess that he's not going to be able to come back. He might not. Achilles or ACL and then Achilles within 18 months of each other, he might not. I guarantee you they're going to find out and let him go through camp to see. And then I will say, I think it's more a restructure in the like base salary where you kick more money out into the future. They're not doing that. However, if you remember a couple years ago, Mitch Morris had a restructure, and I'm doing a finger quotes where they politely called it a restructure. I wish I knew who was doing it. Like someone gave me a thumbs up. Someone just put confetti on my head. Balloons came up. I wish I understood what was happening, and I don't. So kudos to whoever's doing that. I don't understand. It completely threw me off. So Mitch Morris had, and I'm using finger quotes, a restructure where he just took a pay cut, where they went to him and said, hey, we don't really want to communicate this as a pay cut. We'll let your agent send it out as a restructure, but you got to give a whole bunch of this money back or else we got to cut you. Now, that conversation, that might come.
Sure.
That's just the reality of the NFL. And if going into 2025, that is the conversation we're having with Trey White, to be like, man, we just can't keep you at that number anymore, man. But we want you here. We want you to retire as a Bill. We would keep you if it was this number. That conversation I could see happening. But the people who are saying that, Trey White's going to get cut this offseason, that's crazy. Because although, again, we need to accept the reality that, hey, he may not be the same guy anymore, there's also a chance that the rehab goes well. There's also a chance that he is healthy. And if he's healthy and he's 80% of what he used to be, 80% Trey White and Rasul Douglas is the best cornerback combo Sean McDermott's had since he's been here.
Right.
And is fantastic with Christian Benford as a wonderful luxury in case Trey White's not all the way back. So the idea that we're going to just immediately kick one to the curb or not keep Rasul Douglas at an incredibly good value contract, I don't think that's not the most likely outcome. The most likely outcome in my mind is we have Trey White, Rasul Douglas, and Christian Benford next year going into the season.
Yep. And Kaiir Elam. Still have Kaiir.
Correct. And Kaiir. So one last point here. Today, Brandon Beane, he said it, he kind of let it slip, and then he doubled down on it later. That something, again, Eric has been sharing in the Slack channel for the people who are OnePass members, that Kaiir Elam, even though he's not consistently listed, has been dealing with a pretty significant foot and ankle injury this whole time. He was trying to play through it and wanted to play. And, hey, that's the way the NFL works. Everybody's not healthy all the time. They may shut him down and put him on the IR to let him heal. Yeah. And that gets him off the 53-man roster. That gives a roster spot maybe for a guy like Josh Norman as a backup or whoever it might be. Obviously, we just added Rasul Douglas, so there's a roster spot for him possibly. I think that's fantastic. So the second biggest takeaway besides at the trade deadline, besides getting Rasul Douglas, was my excitement that we did not give away Kaiir Elam for nothing. The people who wanted to ship him out for a 6th round pick, why? Like, wait, that doesn't get us anything. I don't care about a 6th round. And that price will always be there. If next year we decide, hey, it ain't working out and at cut down day, we got to just cut our losses, you can get a 6th round pick for him then. Yeah. We just got a 6th round pick for Boogie Basham. Right. Like, in Kaiir Elam, the 1st round pick, and was drafted more recently. Like, we will be able to get that. I would much rather take a shot. I don't. Some people have thrown out a position change to safety. Some people have thrown out all kinds of different things. I'm good giving them a little more time and to figure things out and not sell for nothing. Yeah,
you don't have to chase picks. We already know the Bills are a little lousy with picks, if you will. But no, what I liked most from Brandon Beane in that conversation was bringing a little bit of information to go with that they're not giving up on Kaiir yet. He talked about Josh Norman in Carolina having to be benched multiple times before he really clicked for him. Rasul Douglas, they just brought him in. Great example. Struggle.
You've referenced Leonard Floyd before.
Leonard Floyd, another example of just taking a little time to click. AJ Epinesa, who is having a fantastic season as a rotational defensive lineman now. People were ready to give up on him.
Sorry to interrupt. Yeah. I just saw a free agent list from one of the guy, Josh, that we had on from the Commanders with his top 3 free agent edge options, and AJ Epinesa was 3rd. Out of all the available free agent edge, AJ Epinesa was the number 3 available guy as a target. Imagine telling Bills fans that a year ago.
That's what I'm saying. So the idea that, this was just terrible. He's a bust. He's terrible. I get it. I understand why people are in there. He's appeared to be a healthy scratch. We now know that maybe that's not the case. He's struggling through some injury. They still believe that he could be the player that they drafted him to be and be part of this defense, and that not everybody's development lines up the same way, and not everybody has the same career path. And so they still believe in him. And I loved that messaging from Brandon Beane, talking about that and giving the fans some of the experiences they've had with corners specifically of not clicking right away and taking a little bit of time. So there's still opportunity for him to turn it around here. But we are running way late. We talk too much, Greg.
Way over.
We like the sound of our own voices. So let's I think
let's
you
predict some things.
I think you did predictions first last. I don't remember.
I did.
I'm going to be super quick here on this one because it's not really a whole lot different than what Joe was talking about. I have it flipped though. He had it, I think 30-27 was his
30-27
Bengals. I have it 30-27 Bills. I see also a similar type of game where some shot plays, you're seeing the Bills starting to get more explosives as they've gotten into this more up tempo look. I think that might help against the Bengals and the defense that they're going to try to employ against the Bills, where last year they seemed to have the answer for everything the Bills are trying to do on offense. And I think if the Bills can keep them on their heels and not allow them to make changes on the fly within the series and have that up-tempo pace, I think there are going to be some shot plays available to them in this game that's going to lead to some high scoring really on both sides. I do think the Bengals are going to score too. This is a game where I do think I'm very concerned about the Bills' defense ability to stop the run. That is a super concern for me right now. But if they can win on some of these early downs against the Bengals and get this dime look going on defense, I do think that they can stymie some of the pass and stall out some drives for the Bengals. And one thing I noticed even the last couple of weeks on tape, get contact on these wide receivers, even after they catch the ball, punch in the ball, get at it. In that San Francisco game, San Francisco probably had 4 or 5 opportunities where that ball hit the ground in different scenarios, and they capitalized on a couple, but they didn't capitalize on all of them. if you get physical with these guys, there's some opportunities there for you. So I want to see them be able to win on first and second down on defense, get into some of the dime looks, and then really bring it. Have Jordan Poyer in the middle of the field on some of those crossing routes and punching balls out and really attacking these wide receivers, because I do think that could be the thing that changes it for the Bills. So I got a 30-27 Buffalo.
Okay. So the scary part is, I think all of the games that people are rushing through their minds are realistic possible outcomes on Sunday. I think a Bills blowout win is possible. I think a Bengals blowout win is possible. And I think a shootout is the most likely, but I think we're going to know pretty quickly. I think as long as it's trading haymakers, it's fine. If either team gets out to a second score lead,
for sure,
it could go downhill really quickly. If we get the Bengals out of their running game and make them one-dimensional on offense, and having to go, Joe talked about that they're not awesome against the run. Guys like Trey Hendrickson and some of their secondary is not great against the run. They just are awesome against the pass. And if they get a lead, they can lean on you. And that's why you see them lose games to the Tennessee Titans 27-3. Because if it starts to go downhill, they're not built to stop it. They're built to play. They're built to be really good front runners with an explosive offense who can go downhill and just make it look awesome, because
Seattle had multiple opportunities to win that game because it was so close.
Correct. So, one, it's critical that the Bills score early, get a lead early, and ideally get a second score lead here, whether it's 10 points or 14 points, and it could really go in the Bills' favor. The opposite, if the Bengals jump out to a lead and get a score and get a second score and start to go up by 10 or 14, their defense is built to stop the pass. Their offense can run the ball down our throats. They are able to take those long, annoying, backbreaking drives. So I don't know which of those is the most likely to happen. I don't know which one's going to happen. They're both possible. They're both in the range of outcomes here. So, similar to my comment with Tampa Bay, I don't know how much of this is wish casting. I don't know how much of this is me saying what I need to happen for my mental health. I think the Bills win. I think it is going to be a memorable, awesome game that we talk about for years to come, and Mike Tirico and Chris Collinsworth lose their minds, and is going to have everybody pumped up about a playoff rematch, and that kind of trio at the top of the AFC is what we expected it to be, with the Chiefs and the Bengals and the Bills, and hey, they're back and we're going to have a race to the finish. I think the Bills take it with a late score, because they need to score as time expires. I think they're going to be down by 4, like 35-31, where a field goal isn't going to be able to do it, and that we get a game-winning touchdown 38-35, and the Bills pull it out, and it's going to be a game we all remember, and it's going to be a ton of fun. But I just don't remember that many games where I think there's such a wide range of outcomes, because of we've seen both these teams play awesome games and both these teams play miserable games. And the Bills haven't gotten boat raced like the Bengals did by the Titans and some of the ugly losses. The Bengals losses are uglier than the Bills, but they both had losses to teams they shouldn't have lost to, and they both kicked the crap out of teams that were really well thought of. And I'm really interested to see which of those we see on Sunday night.
Yeah, I think the one thing that's just going to keep me up at night is the last two times. Granted, these are not the same teams that met last year, but the last two times we saw these teams play, the quarter and whatever we saw before DeMar Hamlin went down, it looked like the game you were describing of Bengals score and we're about to get a second score, and you felt like if they get that second score, we're done for. And then the playoff game played out that exact way of they just kept going down, kept scoring. And so this team, more so than the Chiefs, more so than the Dolphins, of these top teams, are right now the ones that, to me, the Bills have to get over the hump of being able to play with, because the last time we know that they can play with the Chiefs in different scenarios. They've gone toe to toe in big time shootouts with the Kansas City Chiefs. They just boat raced the Miami Dolphins this season. The Bengals are the ones that have presented physicality issues for the Bills, that have presented issues for Josh Allen being able to get the ball moving, that have kind of masterminded their way down the field against this defense. And so it's a hump that the Bills need to get over. And so that's for me to be able to sleep easy. And I'd love to see them be able to get over the hump here. And see, we saw them do it after getting beat pretty bad against Kansas City in the playoffs, be able to come back in the regular season the next year and win that game. And I'm expecting that in one Bills drive, Sean McDermott, all those guys are letting them remember how that playoff game felt. And they're using all the little gems and things that they've worked in installs to specifically beat this team are going to come out and present themselves this week, hopefully.
Yeah, I'm okay saying I think from a locker room and confidence in internal mental approach, I think this game means more to the Bills than it does.
It's got it right.
So I'm excited to see how that turns out and where those pieces go, and we'll need to see some creativity from a lot of what's coming up here, because this is a talented, well-coached team, at least defensively. I don't think Zac Taylor is anything special offensively, but Lou Anarumo is awesome. And it's going to be really interesting to see. And I think that fans who are anxious and think this could be very telling for the rest of the season, you're probably right, but it can go both ways. Yep. It can go both ways. This can be a reality check in that, hey, we're not what we thought we were, or it can be the boost that, hey, we're every bit of the team that we thought we were, and here's why. And I'm excited to see where it goes.
And Sunday's about to be the longest day of the year. And all day for Sunday night never hits so hard. Long. Yeah.
All right, guys. So fun. I'm going to be heading up to Buffalo on Friday. Going to be meeting up with some people to go check out a Sabres game and have some fun. So looking forward to that. If you happen to be going to the Sabres game, shoot me a message on Twitter. I'm going to try to say hi to as many people as I can while I'm there. Looking forward to that, and then hunkering back down and getting ready for an awesome game. Make sure you're checking out all the other stuff that we have going on at Cover One. Fantastic shows. The Air Raid Hour is going to be doing a game preview, and then Aaron and I will be here with you, regardless of how late it is on Sunday night. We will be here with you doing a post-game show, getting ready. But also, you guys were fantastic in the chat. Please remember, press that like button on the way out. It really means a lot to us. Is how you help let other people know that you enjoyed the show here tonight. Awesome producer Chris Kepner is bringing up all your comments here throughout the show. We appreciate you. If you didn't have a chance yet, go give us a comment in the actual YouTube comments of what your score prediction is. Aaron and I check those and try to react to and reply to as many of those as we can. Make sure you check those out. We appreciate it. But on behalf of Chris Kepner and Aaron Quinn, I am Greg Tompsett. You've been listening to the Cover One Buffalo podcast, and we are out.